All right, so today we're going to have a seminar. We're going to look at knowledge claims, and we're going to look at what it is. Sorry, I'm writing at the same time. What it is that you think you're certain of. Okay, so just to give background and to get you thinking and focused on what you want to say, because there's lots of ways that you can start, right? You can either start with a certitude and belief paper and talk about how you're ranking things, or you can start with nothingness. But I'm just going to kind of go through what the actual context is of this. It says one of the central functions of language is to express thought. However, identifying other functions of language is important so that the power of language can be assessed. And that's what level 2 TOK does. Level 1 was where you guys were actually thinking about, okay, language is a way that we know things. Yeah, I get it. I speak it, I write it. That's how I know it. But now we're looking at how, through the use of language, knowledge is shaped. Consider, for example, teachers teaching you new information. You're the student. You're learning new information. It's when that information, when you finally understand that information, new knowledge is formed. Does that make sense? Yes? So what you have to then decide is, how do you decide to accept that knowledge or not to accept it? That's another level of this critical thinking. So what we're going to do is to talk about that a little bit. So it says, if language is only a tool by which we express our thoughts, then we may command it and use it for our own ends. If, however, language is not only a tool, but is also a shaper forming thought, identity, and memory, then we may be commanded by it. Among other things, then, the knowledge we have is dependent to some extent upon it, and we may not be as free as we assume we are. This lesson belongs to a consideration of language. It is not an introductory lesson. It is fairly sophisticated, and beginning students are not allowed to participate in the drama. So the aims here are to kind of think about the fundamental nature of language and its role in all knowledge systems. Also to consider linguistic determinism in human life and to question claims of free will. And also to consider whether or not language creates, clarifies, or obscures what is true. Okay? In other words, same scenario, teacher teaching something to students, something completely new, you don't know anything about it, all of a sudden new knowledge is formed. Does that new knowledge get in the way of you being able to get to the truth? Or is it knowledge that you adopt as truth? Or is it knowledge that allows you to utilize to get to the truth? So when you're thinking about certitude, when you're thinking about what you're certain of, and you're saying, I'm certain that I'm going to die. Okay, what body of knowledge led you to understand that? And why do we accept it? But why don't we live our lives so that we are about to die? Right? So really kind of go beyond the general. This is what I'm certain of. Well, okay, first of all, how am I certain of that? And then what body of knowledge takes me to understand that? Okay, does that make sense? What you're talking about? Yeah. All right, so I'm going to be listening for the comments that you make. And you have the rubrics, so you might want to write down, if somebody says something that you think is pretty profound, try and write down their words. Use whatever paper you want to use for that before we go further. So you have the poem Nothingness, and you have a whole bunch of questions. Is there anyone who'd like to start talking about this?
Well, the poem or...
Whichever one you want to start with. Nothingness or certain, what you're certain of.
I think we can all start with Nothingness. I'm pretty sure we all read that, right?
Yeah.
Well, what I got out of it is that without language, we're really, for lack of a better word, nothing in a way. Language is like a cornerstone for, communication, and whether it's, body language or verbal language or any emotional language, it's something that shapes our everyday life, and we use it all the time for like every single interaction we do, and even in our own thoughts, we use language, and it's key in our lives. Basically, that's what I got out of it.
Something I find interesting that I read. I don't know if the author like meant to do that or not, but when I read it the first time, I thought it was strange. In lines 5 through 8 or 5 through 9, the author makes comparisons, like a shipwrecked person on a tide engulfed sandbank, like referring to what he or she feels like without language. And I thought that it was interesting because all this, I think all the scenarios were, like, for example, a shipwrecked person. The person was already in like a bad situation, and then like a shipwrecked person, and then on a tide engulfed bank makes it worse. So I was wondering if like life was already, like, he was trying to say life was already like a shipwrecked person, and then the tide engulfed bank was the lack of language, like it just made the situation worse.
Does the lack of language create hopelessness in people? Like a sense of hopelessness?
That may be what he's trying to convey with the situations, actually. 'Cause, I mean, a man flung from a treetop doesn't have a lot of hope when he's far above the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And like a shipwrecked person would lose a lot of hope from being on a tide engulfed sandbank. So I think that might have been what he was trying to do. Assuming that's a I can't say.
What about the stone? I think that's sort of a very different comparison than the other two.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the other two is comparing living people, but the stone is, it's sort of personifying it.
Right.
Does it? I mean, I guess the bottomless pit could stand for the lack of language in that part of it.
Obviously, there's no hope in that.
That's
I think that's the most extreme one, too.
Yeah.
And with the questions that we were thinking about, would be summarize what life seems to be with language and what it seems to be without it. I was thinking without, it seems empty, and that's kind of seen in the bottomless pit.
Right. Yeah, I think the bottomless pit is definitely the most hopeless out of the four comparisons. That's probably why he ended on that one.
So what did you think that the main knowledge claim was?
I said that life was hopeless without language.
Without language or nothing.
Is there anything else that exists that could exist without the language?
Anything that could exist without language?
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
is there? I mean, if you can't, like an interaction, could there be an interaction without language?
Well, it depends on what you use language. I mean, basically any communication is some form of language.
Yeah.
So I don't think you could.
Okay, can we back up a second? I'm sorry. You said that your knowledge claim was without language, life is
hopeless. Though.
Life is hopeless. And what was yours, Andy?
I said without language, we are nothing.
Without language, we do what?
We are nothing.
We are nothing. Did you say yours?
No. My knowledge claim was that language is the most important way of knowing because it is the method by which all other ways of knowing are articulated.
Okay. So yours is kind of a positive.
Yeah.
What was yours, Manny?
Individuals are really nothing significant without language, without the language to express themselves, and also to.
Hold on. Individuals are nothing significant without language?
Mhm.
Wow.
Because the interactions you have with people are kind of, I mean, in a way, what really makes you human, what separates you from, you know, like other species, in my opinion. It's, you know, you have unique and complex interactions with human beings that I have never seen occur in other, species, animals, and things like that. So, and language is basically one of the things we have that other animals and, other things that inhabit this earth that they don't have. We have language, and it's how we express ourselves and how others express their feelings towards us. Their thoughts, their ideas, everything.
What's your knowledge claim, Layla?
So to be without language is to be without knowledge, and it's not necessarily mine. That's what I felt the poem was saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not saying that knowledge, like you could know something on
Oh,
your
good
own
to
without.
clarify that, because that's
But I
our
felt the
personal
poem was saying
beliefs.
you
Right,
could know anything
yeah.
without language.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Perfect.
Do you guys think there's any way to, off what Mandy said, is there any way to form individuality without language?
Without language?
Yeah.
I think we'd be more individuals without language
Yeah.
because we wouldn't be able to take ideas or knowledge from others.
And again, you need.
But, like, how would you get your own knowledge, though?
That's all you have is whatever you think that you know.
Whatever you experience.
But without language, how would you, like-
With your intuition and emotion.
Are we talking about, like, language is stripped from us, or, like, if we never had it to begin with? Because I don't think, can you...
I think it's
If we've
two
never
different
had it.
cases.
Yeah,
if
so
it's
what would we
strict
know
and if it's-
without
So,
learning from others?
so
We would know.
It would be
what we
instinctual,
had
it would be
our
like-
experience and instinctual. And
Learn
emotion.
ourselves, but
It
from
would,
what?
yeah, it would be primitive.
Yeah.
It would be instinctual. You feel hungry, so you would go find food.
But everyone has
It
the same
would-
instinct, so would
Yeah.
you be less individual? You'd sort of
But
just
the way
be a
that you do it
drone.
would be different from the way other people do it because your brains would work differently.
not necessarily.
I think you're more individual with language. I'd say.
Okay. How about some specifics to back all these up?
I don't know. I feel like the amount of instinctual knowledge that you have is limited. There's a cap on the amount of instinct you can have, and I don't think there's any limit on the amount of knowledge we can
So can you tie that? How do you know that? What way of knowing or what experience do you have that can support that?
I don't know. Instinct is a way, or
Intuition.
yeah.
Intuition.
But then you could also sort of use memory, because if you say your instinct is to drink water out of a river, but after you drink the water, you get sick. You remember that river got you sick, so you wouldn't drink out of that river.
And that's new knowledge.
But it's still like I think it's much more limited without language. It's the amount of knowledge you can get from drinking something is it's the extent of drinking something. So it's like
Well,
You
that's
could
sense
still get-
perception.
You can still get knowledge from others because you could see that person drink out of the water and see that they get sick, and then you could know that you shouldn't drink out of that either.
I mean, what ways of knowing do you lose without language? Well, other than language. I mean, do you?
Sense you can faith a little bit.
Yeah. What do you learn about faith?
It'd be your own individual faith that you would believe in, but wherever that comes from.
That's interesting, Andy.
Yeah.
You know,
I wonder if it comes from the same place whether you have language or not. It's
So I
interesting.
think, I guess.
I think some things will be reduced. Faith.
I think you could still have that.
Imagination.
But it's one. I think they're all.
Because for imagination, you extract ideas from what for things you've communicated with other people, ideas, like maybe if you're, I don't know,
So, okay, I'm just going. What we would lose a lot of areas of knowledge, though, correct? Like we would lose
Yeah.
a lot of them.
Yeah.
So if we don't lose, I mean, you can only think of one that might, one way of knowing that we might lose, but we don't lose areas, or we do lose areas of knowledge. So it's like,
Well, you
there's-
don't, in areas of knowledge, you don't really lose indigenous knowledge.
okay. So do all the rest stem from language? Like is language the required way of knowing?
I don't think it is for art.
Well,
Ethics
literature is
necessarily.
an art.
Yeah, it depends on what you use.
Ethics.
Yeah, but I mean, you know,
I would argue that music
for
is a
writing
language.
it would, yes.
Yeah.
Writing it would.
I would argue
For
that music is a
music,
language.
yes.
History could be
Music.
still based off of your memory. You wouldn't have all of the history. You would just have your own history.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can think of one way of knowing that when you lose it, that all those, like that many go away, you know, like maybe
Right.
languages.
Well, reason, I
That
think,
works for other.
reason, I don't know about that. Is reason mostly based on language?
But I mean, if then I think that it might be incorrectly categorized. If the way I view ways of knowing, I don't think they should be too leaning on each other. Like they should be separate categories.
Well, emotion doesn't have anything to do with language.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like they're categorized like that in that many different, like those 8 categories, because they're different from each other, and they don't fall under the same category. So I don't think, like if you're going to say reason is dependent on language,
Then, well, but they can
I
be
don't think
interconnected.
reason's dependent on language.
I don't
Like-
think it is, but could it be?
But I mean, what Lucas said about the drinking the water, like you reason that that's a bad thing, so you're gonna still have it without language.
But what do you do though? What is reason?
I don't know. What do you think, like in your head, without language?
How do your thoughts?
Well, there's,
Yeah, that was
there's
my
people
question.
that don't. There's people that don't think the same. Like Miss Miller told us about the kid that was reading and he doesn't see pictures of things when he reads.
Yeah, but Lou, like,
Like you
what
would-
do you? I mean, there's no way of me knowing any. I don't think any of us knowing that. But I mean, what? Do you have any ideas of what you would? What it was like? Okay, if people will ask like, oh, if you, like if you can't talk, then, like I've seen on Facebook, if you can't talk, then what do you see in your head? I mean, you can see sign language, you can see
I mean, you still
symbols,
have.
you can see pictures, but it's like, I mean, if you don't have language
Like
at
you
all,
still have feelings and emotions. And
How would you?
how would you think those things?
Maybe it would sort of strengthen imagination because without language, the only way you could sort of think would be to go through scenarios. in
Yeah, I
your
was gonna
head.
say very visual.
Yeah. So maybe that would sort of
Yeah.
enhance imagination
Yeah.
without language.
That would probably enhance the arts.
And
Yeah.
probably also enhance your sense perception too.
Yeah. So, I mean, are the WAKs like, you know how when you can't hear, then one of your senses escalates
If they're limited by each other.
in order to make up for it? So the WKs limit each other, so that like when one is gone, others escalate. But it's completely.
So then, would you really lose anything? I mean,
You gain something.
Yeah, I mean, you do lose areas of knowledge,
I mean, you lose something.
or at least limit them at the very least.
So what does this
Maybe like
poem
check
say
the
about?
boxes.
What does this poem say about that? Does it speak about it at all?
I think this poem's a little exaggerated. It's
Yeah.
extreme, yeah.
Mhm.
It is.
So I don't really agree with that.
So did you guys have any personal connections to any of the images or any of the thoughts in it?
I don't know. It kind of just, I just didn't really like it. I thought it was way too extreme. I can see maybe he's just, he or she, I don't know if it's a he. Do you know? If Aharon is a he or she?
I have no idea.
I'll
We
just
can-
refer
You
to
can look
it.
it up. You got a phone.
I'll just
Look
refer
it
it
up.
as a he. But, okay, so he, obviously, I don't think that he really believes that extremeness of that. I
It's
don't see how
translated
anybody
from the
can.
Hebrew, so there might be something lost in translation.
I think it's very symbolic because in Hebrew, okay, yeah, Hebrew is getting like it's not the language that it used to be. You know, like I think he's talking about Hebrew. I don't think he really believes that it's that extreme, but he's just trying to make a point. So I don't know. I couldn't really think of anything because I don't think he could really relate to any of those scenarios that he.
Where would his knowledge of this come from?
That's why I'm saying like
Yeah.
it's extreme. I think he's just throwing it out there because there's no way.
But I mean, did any of you relate to anything here? I mean, when I read the first couple of lines, I thought this must be what it's like when a person has Alzheimer's or something, you know, a disease or amnesia or something, and they all of a sudden they don't know anything. They've lost their ability to be able to do something. Or, like, for example, it kind of reminded me of when a person, you know, a soldier, for example, loses a leg, and all of a sudden he's like, wait a minute, where'd my leg go? That same awareness of something that I had is now gone. So I think we can all kind of relate to that, yes, no? And he says, you know, he's filled with fear and it's like terror. So I felt like we could all kind of somehow, so where does that come from?
I don't know. When I first looked at my finger, after I took off the bandages,
right.
It was like, I don't know, I didn't really understand why, but I got really upset. Like, I didn't know where it was coming from or why, I just got really upset. So maybe,
Because
I
I
couldn't
really
describe
didn't
the
believe
feeling.
it was true.
I couldn't describe the feeling, but I don't know, it was just really upsetting. For like 10 minutes, I was really upset.
10 minutes, that's it?
Yeah, but I was really upset for like 10 minutes, and then I kind of got over it. But it was.
Why was that upsetting to you?
I don't know. That's what I'm trying to say. Like it was a feeling I'd never felt that before about anything. It was kind of just like it's gone and it will never come back. So it was kind of.
And the doctors told you that?
Well, they told me that before. This was way after it happened.
Oh.
This was like because I had to wear bandages for 5 days, and the first time I actually saw it was when I got really upset. So like saw it after the surgery, because then it was kind of like a definite, you know, it was not coming back. Because I didn't really think about it as much.
You had to have surgery?
Yeah, they had to close it. It was bleeding a lot.
How long did it take, the surgery?
Like an hour. It was very long.
Did you wait for long?
Yeah, I had to wait for like 6 hours to get in. Some dude had a chainsaw accident and got put in front of me.
That puts things in perspective.
Yeah,
It
seriously,
does,
yeah.
it
I was
does.
like, yeah. It just, no, obviously, yeah. But I don't know. I can see, I guess, where you said about losing something. I don't know, like you can't get it back. I guess I had felt that way.
I guess, I mean, the closest I've been to being without language is, I mean, I wasn't really without language. It was just when I returned to the U.S., I was about 6. I did not, I mean, I just got put straight into school. Like, I came back and I knew very few English words and everything, and it was interesting because I was just put in an environment where it was all English and it was like a whole new language to me, and it was really different, and I could not understand one bit. I could understand like really basic stuff, but that's just one experience where I was like closer to having no language, you know, like relating more to having like no language. But even though I had a little bit of English still, and I mean I had my Spanish and everything, but it was just it was rather scary actually. It gave me a lot of fear because I didn't know what was going on, because it just took away my language. I mean, I didn't take away my language, but I didn't have it. I had, you know, conquered it, and it was just it was rather scary.
Like maybe we're not being fair to the author, because it's like my cousin can't talk, and she's a disease, or she can't learn any of that stuff, and it doesn't bother her, but she's never been able to. So it's like she doesn't know, but I can't imagine knowing it. And this guy seems like he's speaking like he woke up at night and his language was gone. So I don't think he could really speak. I don't think he really has the authority to say that, but that like how bad it is, and it's just all metaphor. But I guess if you really did wake up and you knew language and then you just didn't at all, and it was totally gone, it'd be scary like that.